everybody. Good morning. Lovely to see you. Kind of in line with the theme for this morning, who here doesn't work in travel or works in travel and some other loyalty discipline? Okay, so we're definitely, and him as well, so we're definitely in the minority here today. And we thought it would be a really good and really interesting way to kickstart the morning to look outside of your own sector, so beyond revenue generation, beyond Ian and his bagpipes, and to actually think about what the travel industry could learn from other sectors and what inspiration we can take from how other brands are approaching or looking at some of the challenges that we all face. My name's Charlie. I'm from Mando-Connect. I'm Chief Strategy Officer of WPP's Loyalty, Partnerships and Rewards Agency. I know a lot of you, but not many of you, so I'm looking forward to getting to know you throughout the day. And as Ian said, we're kind of proper loyalty nerds. We do loads of research into what people want. So I'm really excited to be here today. But it's all about the panel today. So what I do is I've asked each of my guests to introduce themselves, and they're going to tell you their favourite loyalty insight, and that's how we're going to start. And we kind of thought that we'll just kind of work along and then work back. So starting with Mark, if you can introduce yourself and your favourite insight, and we won't be leaping up and down.
Favourite insight, Mark Smith, Loyalty Status Co. We work with a bunch of global airlines and hotels around the world on high-value customer acquisition and status monetization. So we don't touch points and miles. It's all about status and leveraging that. Favourite loyalty insight? We deal with status, so I'll give you a stat around that. You know, top 5% of global travelers have status. This is the silver, gold, platinum type people out there. They buy around 30 to 40% of seats. So these, as an aggregate, are the most valuable customers an airline or a hotel can possibly have. They spend more frequently. They spend what's called the right type of money. It's higher margin money. And these people, we found, want to spend more with your brand. And so we're here to create things that they can buy.
That's a great insight. I had a hilarious fight with my parents yesterday because my mother has somehow managed to outdo my father in status, and none of us can quite figure it out despite what I do for a living. So I was right in the middle of quite a big family debate yesterday about silver versus gold. What about you, Frank?
Yeah, my name is Frank de Boer, working for Air France KLM in the Flying Blue program. Already for quite a while, responsible for the data technology. Favorite insight? I had to give it some thought, and we started, what I really get excited about was a partnership we started a while ago with Build in the United States, which actually a company who rewards your rent. If you pay your rent, you get points. And there, for me, the cool thing is to see that loyalty goes into directions that normally we didn't used to see it. Rent, mortgage. And it works, also there it works, and that's really cool. That really gives a lot of opportunities for the future.
Yeah, and it's so huge and so successful. The numbers on
Incredible.
that are terrifying, aren't they? Really, really quite impressive to think it's gone from nothing to that big that quickly.
1.5 years, it's amazing.
What have the rest of us been up to? What about you, Victoria?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Victoria White. I'm Group Director of Loyalty at TUI. You may know TUI doesn't have a loyalty program, so you can imagine what my role is. I've actually just come back to travel. I used to work at Virgin Atlantic with some amazing people of the team here. But in between that, I actually spent some time at ASOS, where I led all the personalization and customer retention. So I had a feel for what it's like outside of the industry, as well as within the industry. It's not really an insight, but it's more kind of a KPI that's probably less touched upon, is more second purchase rate. That's very much where I look at when I get into a business to see how retention changes depending on what number purchase the customer's up to. So for me, where is that sweet spot in the number of bookings that hooks a customer into a loyalty program or into spending money consistently with your brand. And a lot of that, once you've got someone from the first purchase to the second purchase, that's obviously quite a crucial moment. So for me, that's always an insight to focus on and look at the numbers within the business that you're working for.
I think that's really interesting how those KPIs from one sector can then apply to another, and how that behavioural loyalty is really driving that value there. And then last but not least, representing all of non-travel loyalty,
your champion. Good morning, I'm Peter O'Donnell. I'm the head of loyalty at Vodafone UK. So we run the program called Very Me Rewards. It's a great program for our customers. We drive great benefit to our business, and it's really interesting around the revenue conversation that was happening a few minutes ago, that people in loyalty need to understand revenue. It's actually the opposite. People in revenue need to understand loyalty as well. And my route to loyalty came from commercial. So I came huge amount of P&L work, doing a lot of trading within the business, so pricing and everything else, and I've migrated into loyalty. So I've actually come from the dark side into loyalty, which brings a totally different lens to it. And I think it's changed our business, because what I've made our business understand is that the benefit of a loyalty program, done a really, really big PR job to understand that it drives better churn, NPS, and that actually ladders up into a really big benefit to the P&L. And I think that's the barrier we need to break down within the loyalty industry, is to say it does offer great stuff. You just can't see it in pounds and pence, but you can see it in surveys, in customer satisfaction, customers coming back and customers staying with brands. My favorite stat would be that it's UK specific, but it's from the Mando white paper, is that in the UK, 70% of people think that loyalty programs offer good value, but when those customers are actually presented with an opportunity to join a loyalty program, only 35% of those people actually take up that opportunity. So there's a decay of 50%. So there's a real disconnect between, they think it's a good idea, but why aren't they joining? And that is the real challenge I've set my team within Vodafone, to understand there's obviously a distrust somewhere, and we need to break that down and close the gap. When you look at the Nordics, there's only a 10% decay. So it's really different by different countries, how people perceive loyalty programs, and how we need to make sure that when they present with it, they convert and they join straight away.
Yeah, and I think you must also all talk to Pete about how Vodafone are using partnerships as well. It's brilliant for me, obviously, slightly biased, to see partnerships right up at the top of the agenda for today's discussions. And Vodafone are doing some really interesting things in the brand partnership space, and using brand partners in ways to drive engagement in their program. So definitely pick his brains on revenue and partnerships over coffee as well. So thank you everyone for sharing your favourite insight. We're now going to go on to the programs that have inspired you outside of the travel sector. So who do you look at in your personal life or in your professional life to see actually, what can we learn, and what is that program doing that is so interesting to you? We'll start at this end again.
What inspires me a lot is, we talk a lot about gamification. I think where this comes from, games, computer games. I play League of Legends. It's a PC game. It's awesome. Get to go and kill other characters, and it's really fun.
You and Henry Cavill.
Exactly. There's 100 million people a month who play this game. It's super popular. There's a lot of money in it. They have world championships at football stadiums that they sell out, this kind of stuff, dedicated TV channels and streaming stuff. I think there's a lot we can learn from them, because within these gaming, they have currencies. In fact, they have multiple currencies, 2, 3, or 4 currencies, and they all act in their own certain ways, and they all sort of flow into each other and to achieve different objectives. You can unlock things. I think there's a lot that travel loyalty could learn from the gaming industry. Gaming is just also a lot of money. Yeah. Super high margin, super addicted, maybe is the right word. I think there's a lot to learn from there in the way that they operate, they do things. So, me personally, I've taken a lot of inspiration from this industry that has been around for a long time, is proven to keep people coming back and back and back again. So I see a lot of inspiration there.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I think we've all got a lot to learn from the gaming industry. I think you've probably all seen KFC Rewards Arcade launch. It's kind of everywhere with Antavo as part of that partnership. And they're doing some really interesting things in really overt gamification. But I even seen it now in the travel programs, in the language that we're using. Whoever would have thought about unlocking a level, as working your way up through bronze, silver, and gold tiers. I think that's a great one. What about you, Frank?
Well, I tend to look at Rakuten, and really what's admiring to me is how they built this full ecosystem. It's not standalone columns that try to work together, but it's really an integrated system that makes the value of the points that you get quite high. So that's something for me to see how can we do that.
Yeah. And again, another brilliant example. A great brand partner as well to work with from a rewards point of view. We work with them on a number of clients.
Yeah, I think I the loyalty program of Starbucks in the US. It's slightly different in the UK. But in the US, so the aim is to collect as many stars as you can. For every drink that you purchase, I think you get something like 3 stars. But there's a way of getting bonus stars, and the more stars you have, the more you can redeem for free drinks and status and stuff like that. But what's interesting behind the scenes that customers aren't aware of is that for customers that are less engaged, they're actually rewarded with more stars than the customers who are already engaged. So if you're someone that's only shops only buys once a month or a couple of times a month, they'll actually say, if you buy this and this in the next month, we'll give you 50 stars as a bonus. But actually, if you're someone who buys every week, they'll actually say, oh, you get 20 stars if you achieve the same thing. So it's very interesting to see how it's all personalized towards the behavior that you're trying to drive from the customer, rather than in kind of traditional tiered loyalty programs, you're expecting the same behavior. You're trying to drive the same behavior from everyone. Do this many flights and you get silver status, but actually everyone's behavior is very differently, and for a lot of people that wouldn't work. So programs that specifically tailor their programs to their customers, personalization as we all know it, that for me is something very interesting to look at.
Yeah, and I think coffee is such an interesting sector. We've been looking at the research now since 2017, and I think if anybody had asked me in 2017, would coffee be one of the loyalty sectors that's leading the way, we would have sort of laughed and fallen off the stage. Everybody had a little paper card with 10 stamps and that's all you got. But that sector is exploded in terms of sustainability, rewarding brand appropriate behavior with brand appropriate reward. Digital, addressing the pain points, I think, is probably one of the things that sector is held up as best in class with through the development of the apps. Not to mention actually even potentially becoming a bank. I mean, who would have thought that would be a thing in coffee as well? So again, another great example, plus obviously a complete caffeine addict, so great choice. And last?
I was going to say KFC.
Excellent.
Because I love KFC.
He really
but
does.
I'll give you a different answer, but I'll talk about KFC really, really quickly. KFC kind of changed the way loyalty happened within that sector. Their old program was just stamps. You did something, you got a stamp, you got a star, you got a currency. And I commend them for taking a really, really brave step. They came under a lot of heat when they got rid of that program, and they totally revolutionized their program from top to bottom. And it's so engaging. It's just like, it's mesmerizing if you've ever been on it. It's like an arcade, and the graphics, especially, it's very pleasing, and it's really, really easy to operate. So I think they've made a huge leap, and it's benefited them. So I commend them for being really, really brave, because they went away from just stamps and transactions. The other one I really, really like is Amex, but a particular part of Amex. I really love the Shop Small program within Amex, because I'm an Amex customer, but what it does for me, it gives me value as a customer. So if I go to a shop, I get £5 back when I spend at this shop. But what it also does, it unlocks value and unlocks a kind of sense of community in my local area. I live in Clapham in London, but I go to a local retailer I might not go to, and I actually talk to that guy, and then I build this habit where I'm actually go back to that shop again. So what you're doing is I'm benefiting, the local retailer is benefiting, and of course Amex are benefiting as well, but it's kind of everyone is winning at that point, and you establish that habit where you might go to a new coffee shop, you might go to a new corner shop, you might go to a new restaurant, and I just love how big and small come together and everyone wins. So it's that kind of synergy is really good for me.
And I think that's such a great space that so many different sectors are really addressing that corporate social responsibility in really interesting brand appropriate ways. And I think that big and small is a really, really, really great example of that. But I'm not going to talk about sustainability now, because we're talking about that later. My next question, and I did check this with the organisers, it is slightly controversial, and I do ask it with the greatest respect to all of you and the travel sector. And also, I'm a mathematical economist, so I love maths, so I'm kind of caveating this question. But the travel sector is notorious in other sectors for perhaps rewarding its audience in quite functional mathematical ways. Book a flight, get some maths. try and change up a tier, get some maths, get a second currency of maths to work out on top of your existing maths about how far you can fly, and not being terribly transparent. So we're quite lucky, we get to work on lots of programs. We even did some work on BA, and sitting down with the economists to actually work out how we could actually model up the points value is obviously something that you all deal with every day, and I hold my hands up in admiration. But one of the questions I wanted to ask is, the travel sector is notorious for rewarding with maths, and other sectors don't do that. And perhaps there are ways to bring more emotion into travel programs that are less about the maths and more about the experience. So I wanted to ask each of my panelists their opinion on that question. You know, is maths the right thing to be rewarding audience with, and what else should we be thinking about in our sector? And should we go the other way? Should we start with Victoria, who's smiling at my controversial question, said with the greatest respect?
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time with points at Virgin Atlantic. I actually sold off our points program into Virgin Red, the Virgin Wide program, which took away our lives for like 2 years. So I'm definitely very familiar with all the maths, etc. of points. And I really think it depends who your customer base is. So, you know, if you have made the decision, there's a difference between a loyalty and a retention program in my mind. No, there's a frequent flyer program and a loyalty program. If you want to be a frequent flyer program and you want to focus like specifically on status, then probably points makes a lot of sense, because they spend a lot of time thinking about status, and they want to invest. They invest a lot of money, so they're happy to invest a lot of time in understanding how to get as much back for their money as possible. But if you decide that actually rather than focus on the top 10% of customers, you want to focus on the 90% of customers and maybe just try and drive one more transaction from them, which ultimately is a lot more revenue and margin than you would from just one more from the top 10%, then I think points become irrelevant, because people just don't have the time. There's obviously a lot of us who are very nerdy about points in here, and there's we could probably build a university together on points. But ultimately, the average person on the street doesn't care and just wants to know, what do I get back? How do I get rewards? How do I get experience? And so if you set up a program that you want 90 to 100% of customers to engage in, I would say points is not the way to go.
Interesting. I feel like I need to run away. Frank?
Well, I tend to agree for your Elite Plus member-based points really work well. I mean, it's for them, it's emotion, almost. So I definitely do not propose to change that. But as you said, the 90% of your other customers, they don't work with points, but still they want to go, in the airline industry, they want to go on vacation. So that's their emotional, that's the inspiring asset that an airline has. So there we need to cater for. So then it's less about points, but it's more about currency. How can people earn, well, actually with every pound or euro they spend, how can they earn miles for them to save up for their dream vacation, or even for an upgrade if they fly? So I think it's both that we need to balance, and in the frequent flyer programs it was purely the math, and now we have to add more the miles part.
And I think that's always been one of the interesting tensions that those of us who work in the sector and outside of the sector observe, that the reward, the experience, the holiday, the travel has so much emotion in it, but the process of earning it for the majority is that challenging. And I think that divide between the top 10% and the kind of the majority is quite an interesting thing to think about.
For frequent flyer programs, you earn miles only when you fly. So, and most of our customers, they don't fly that much to be able to earn sufficient miles. So we need our partnerships to make it also possible for them to save within a decent amount of time, not 5 years, but and then make it valuable for them also. And that's a challenge that's well here right now.
Sorry.
I think it's about communication. When the finance people get too involved in this stuff, it becomes about math. most people don't want to hear about math, especially in travel. Travel has always been about the dream. It's always been about the emotional connection. It's been about, I want to go to Tahiti and see the beach. I want to see the Eiffel Tower. I want to see the pyramids. I want to see the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. I want to see all these amazing things. It's the dream that travel has always sold, and has done a effing damn good job at it over the last century. People aspire to travel. They aspire to go somewhere. They want to go in a big metal thing in the sky and try and see something new. The currency that they can redeem to get there for the upgrades or for the free seat, that's just the mechanism to get there. But that's not what they're buying into. They're buying into the dream. Therefore, you sell the dream. Therefore, this is the communication piece. Less about communicating and say, you need X point. So it's about just put a photo there of a beach. So do you want to go here? And then people will just figure out naturally what they need to get there. Yeah. So I think loyalty specifically is in this scenario is about less about math and more about emotion and how programs and brands can tap into that emotion, because we are all human, we are all driven by these emotions, we are emotional beings. Let's leverage that.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point of view, and that actually what's so great about the destination is actually worth almost the effort of getting there and working it all out. We work a lot with the behavioural science team at Ogilvy, and actually they have a theory that the more effort you actually put in, the greater the emotional reward, and a lot of that comes from human psychology. So I think there's some real merit to that argument as well, actually. The work that you have to put in to achieve that dream actually makes the dream more special.
People will pay a lot of money for a free seat.
Yeah. A companion voucher.
Yeah.
Oh, we love them. What about you, Pete? What do you think?
First, I'm a points geek.
I know.
A game playing early to get points. But what I would say is that I think travel can learn a lot from mobile. So if you think about a mobile contract, someone gets a contract on day one and we don't talk to them for nearly 20 months. And the standard person within the world probably goes on holidays once a year. So what we've learned at Vodafone is how do you keep that constant communication with the customer? And I think that's where we formed kind of all these core props to our business. So we're trying to build a habit for our customers to come back all the time. And I think that's where I'm with BA, I'm with Qatar, I'm with Flying Blue, and I've never formed a habit with those programs. But what we've done at Vodafone is we have cinema tickets, we give away free coffee every second week. If you want to take your family out, we've got discounts on Kids Pass. But what that does is it's moved away from our core proposition, but what we're building is familiarity with our customers, that I want value, I know exactly where I can get it. And I think that is where the travel industry can unlock. If you keep that relationship going on an ongoing basis throughout a year, naturally they're going to come back to you and you're going to generate that revenue, because the travel industry is really competitive, like mobile. Mobile is seriously competitive, and so is flights. The Skyscanner will throw 100 flights at you at once, going to the same place. So it's how do you build that connection, form that habit, so it's literally rolls off the top of their head going, I'm going straight to BA or I'm going straight to another airline. So that's how we build emotional connection, and how I know and qualify that we've built emotional connection is last week we ran out of coffee and had 5 people complain to CEO over a cup of coffee. So just proof point, people are really emotional about really small benefits, and you form that relationship. And I had to deal with people who just give them free coffee without writing to the CEO. But yeah, it's a proof point and a pain point.
Yeah, that's a fun week, I bet. And I think, Very Me is a great example of a lifestyle program. This was actually one of Mark's questions and one of the provocations when we're having our panel prep call, that actually he's observed, and I think we've all observed, that the travel industry programs are trying and slowly moving to becoming more lifestyle programs. And some of the lifestyle programs are now trying almost to look more like travel programs. We're seeing the introduction of tiering and different currencies in that program. And that was a really interesting shift that I think you'd observed and we all talked about. Why do you think that's happening? Do you want to talk to the guys here about, why have you observed that trend and what do you think is driving it?
So the last few years, the world has kind of seen how valuable these airline loyalty programs can be. And other non-travel programs are going, how can we have billions of dollars? And how can we do all this amazing stuff? And so they're looking for ways to be more like airline programs. But same sort of, you've got airline hotel programs trying to be more lifestyle. It's like, which is right? Because they've both got good things going for them. And I think pretty opinionated here, but I'm just going
Good.
to focus on one little box here. Airlines, hotels specifically, shouldn't lose focus of who's spending money with them. Who's flying them, who's at the front of the plane, who is shelling out the big bucks to fly around the world. These are typically people with status. These people are less interested in lifestyle stuff. They have no interest in earning 10 miles doing a survey. They have no interest in these little sort of things. They're interested in the big chunks of things. They're interested in the status. They're interested in the recognition. They're interested in the speed, the ease of going through that process. And when you try to be everything to everyone, you become less relevant to everyone. And you take your eye off the people who are critical to your business, which are these high value flyers. So there is definitely a balance here between, are you a frequent flyer program or loyalty program, the business of loyalty. I think, sure, make it accessible to more people, but you should never take the focus off your core group of flyers. When you start doing that, people start shopping around. These people have money, they have a choice of who they fly, and that's exactly what happens. That's, David was talking about earlier, when programs devalue the programs, they make it harder to get status, they put all these things in, they start looking around. And these days, what happens is when people disconnect from that premium loyalty experience, what happens is they go try a new brand for the first time. They go, you know what, I used to fly this airline, try this one over here, it's not as bad as I thought. What happens is a brand introduction. They keep flying, and then they become less loyal. And then how do you get them back here? It's very difficult. So it's a lot easier to just keep them in the first place, and that comes back to just maintain most, not all, but most of the focus on these people. And what I think that means for airlines, hotels is just don't go too broad too fast. Don't start putting someone that has the ability to earn 1,000 points a year above and beyond someone that can spend $100,000 on tickets.
Yeah, focusing on the most important, most valuable audience. I think we
you
probably all agree.
You just skew to that. You don't ignore it, right? You skew towards that because that's ultimately what drives the airline business, selling seats.
But has that population declined or diminished since COVID? Because a lot of those were business travelers.
It's increased.
Increased.
We've got more people with status now than ever before. You've got Delta's proactively trying to get rid of people with status because they think they make too much money, apparently.
Or selling too many Amex cards.
Taking too many Amex
It's
cards.
the credit card stuff that's really driving up. They're not necessarily loyal to the brand. They're loyal to their credit card and spending with it so that they can get their
If they get a credit
free
card, you are loyal
stuff.
to the brand.
Yeah. It's a co-branded credit card.
Yeah.
What would you
Well,
think?
I do. Well, so I fully agree with you, and I see driving from a frequent flyer program to a lifestyle program is also a bit enforced by the CFOs. They say, okay, we're making so much money, airplanes are full. We have elite customers, they're spending tons of money, but we can buy another airplane, but that will not accelerate our revenue income. So loyalty program, take a look at the 90% that's not spending as much with the airline, and how can we monetize those? So that's the business side.
Yeah.
And that's what I just mentioned, that's where you come into with partnerships. So that's why we're moving, we're saying to a lifestyle program, but we just want to see how we can engage at that 90% more with our program. One way for the revenue, but also to engage more with those customers, those members, and also make it possible for them to get this trip to the Eiffel Tower.
Yep.
So that's where it's more the movement, and for me it's less about going from frequent flyer program to lifestyle, because the frequent flyer program we need to continue, but we have to add a decent proposition for the other ones.
Yeah. And Victoria, in our last couple of minutes, Rick's smiling at me, which means I think we're down to about our last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think I've pretty much said my piece on, again, it depends who your customer base is. If you've got a strong base of customers that are frequent flyers, ensure that they're being rewarded because the expectation's there.
Yeah.
But ensure you're relevant as well for the rest of the customer base.
And keep that regular engagement. And Pete, you've obviously sort of covered this topic in the very me and how you're building that everyday engagement, but anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think We need to reward customers, like, I think the key to the door is the 90%, not the 10%, because get everyone to make one more transaction and at 90%, you're fine, like, literally. But I think to do that, you need to be rewarded little and often. Like, people they don't need, like, all singing, all dancing rewards. They just like little bits to know, sprinkle breadcrumbs at them and they will stay because they feel rewarded.
Yeah.
You know, little goes a long way, and we don't need, like, a massive reward to keep them entertained. I think small has a big
The
reward.
CFOs will love that. We can all
Yeah.
go back and report.
But it just costs money, I have to say, to keep that.
Well,
to-
it does with the
to reward,
quantity.
because you're
It's the
rewarding the
balance.
masses, but you're engaging the masses.
Exactly.
Rather than make one customer happy, make 20,000 customer happy.
One last thing is Mark mentioned that you can't give everything to everyone, but we do forget that you're spending a huge amount of money on acquisition costs. You are paid social and your marketing. And so you're already spending a lot of money on those customers.
Yeah.
And so if you could move a percentage of your marketing and your acquisition costs into your loyalty program, you're not continuously having to acquire the same customer over and over again every 2 years or so. Once you've hooked them, then so your acquisition costs should start diminishing. Obviously, your costs start increasing of your engaging of your 90%, but they should if you've done it properly.
Yeah.
You spend less overall.
Yeah.
Which is, we invest more into the retention and less into the acquisition.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, that's where I'd love it to
Or
be.
more
So we farm the base.
More into acquisition of people that are making the money, into the high value, potential high value people.
But very much smaller percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of debate, and I hope you all continue that over coffee. Now, are we done? Are we taking questions?
We can take a few. My phone is making angry noises, so we're going to allow a few questions. Sure.
Has anyone got any questions for any of our panel? Oh, great. Let's go here first, and then we'll go there, and then we'll go there. We'll do those 3 questions. Your hands are up like rockets.
Enterprise rent-a-car. So the experience that we had going into a relatively new player into the lobby in the leisure space as such, because we're predominantly in the replacement and the contracted space, is that procurement doesn't detach the earn from the burn or the aspirational from the everyday. So, you know, we're a domestic provider. We're born out in the neighbourhoods and the locations. So in the UK and the US, we have more locations than X5 combined. But that means also that our cost model is completely different. So we can't compete always in an airline space where the cost percentage of the cost of business would take away half of our sort of operating profit out of the vehicles that we run. Aspirational is fantastic as a reason to earn, but it doesn't help the everyday burn. So I love the fact you've got Pete here on Vodafone. How do we detach those two things when you're looking to bring partners on board? Because you can't treat every partner as the same. Not every average transaction value is the same. Not every daily rate is the same for us as the competitor to A, B, C, and D. So when we go into just a tender situation and someone's saying to you, you've got to spend X to get into our program, well, actually, we can provide more transactions per year. We can provide more frequent reasons, more behaviours to come and rent a car than any of our competition. But we're precluded from a lot of, because we don't want to spend 30% commission or X marketing budget. So is there an argument that you should modify your procurement exercise? Because we've spoken a lot about revenue management and CFOs, etc. But actually, procurement are the ones who are driving that in the tenders, and we're not being selective and we're not targeting the different offerings. Vodafone are brilliant, by the way. I love your proposition. Targeting specific offers and etc. But does that make sense? What I'm asking?
I'm not familiar with the procurement model, but I would love to talk more about it to understand more and see if there's any insight I can provide.
Okay. And how do you balance? So, Pete, how do you balance the everyday with the aspirational? I suppose you mentioned it, that if you're going to sell a holiday, everyone's going to come back once every 12 months.
Yeah.
But coffee, you might do it once a week.
Yeah.
So, how are you adapting your cost model then for partners to come on board for that transaction is £2,000 or £2,000?
So we specifically look for partners, and Camilla, who's actually sitting in front of you, is working in our team as well, so he'll know as well. But we specifically look for partners where we do a bulk deal over a year or two. So unlimited transactions and that's how we manage our costs for a lot of the time. So we actually say for Just Eat or for Costa, we have an overarching contract, so it's the same price throughout the year, and we can add more people. So what we're doing is actually getting the cost per user down, but the actual OpEx cost or A&R cost is totally fixed for the whole year. They're the type of deals that you should go after, because your finance guys will love them. They're going, sign up once, no more cost, but we can get more people in because it will bring more people in. That is kind of level of thinking the deals you need to go after, in my opinion, is those fixed cost ones, the big core ones. Strike a deal. You leverage your scale to onboard with another brand that sees benefit in what you're doing.
Great. And then I think what I might do is I'll wrap it so that we can get on to the next speech. And then those other questions, come find us. We're all at coffee, and we'll talk about them then. Thank you very much.